Now let's take our attention back to the tower scene. I've been working on shading out everything that you see here ahead of time. So what we'll do is we'll just take a few objects. I'll show you how you might go about shading them, and then the rest of the scene will be up to you. To get started, let's take a look at some of these crystals. I'll show you how you can layer on multiple noises on top of each other and how we can drive certain parameters of this material right here to get some sort of interesting look. One of the coolest things about this course is the fact that I put together a lot of charts so that you can see exactly what these redshift noises are doing. And so in this case, we have this microsurface noise comparison. One thing that I'll really talk about in this lesson is how noises work really, really well whenever you're trying to figure out the microsurface of an object. And by that, I basically mean the bump channel. If you use noises in the bump channel, then you can really affect the specular highlights of an object in a way that breaks them up, and it's very, very cheap to render as well. So here is a chart that goes over these different microsurface variations. Another thing that's really nice about this is that you can open this up in a PDF, and you can just use your left and right arrow keys to cycle through all the different noise types. So really quickly, you can get a very good sense on whatever it is you're looking for, and you're not wasting time trying to click a bunch of links or go to a different website or do things like that. I've also made this large one-page chart, and the cool thing about this is that, well, you could probably print this out and put it on the wall if you want to, right next to your computer. Or if you just prefer a one-page setup, this works pretty well. With this chart in mind, let's go and shade the crystals. The first thing we ought to do is get some kind of basic shader going on so that we can use that as a base and then begin adding detail through the noise. Let's go to the top and choose a glass preset to get us started. And I'll set my render region right here. Okay, so the BRDF, GGX, I like the highlights better on that, so that's why I do that. For right now, the roughness will be at 0. And the IOR, let's set that to something that's not too high, maybe like 1.75. If we go too high, then the light just bends too much, and it's kind of hard to tell what you're doing. Even 1.75 is a lot, so let's just actually stay at 1.5 for the time being. I'll maybe add a little bit of blue through the refraction color here, so let's try something like that. We do have a icy scene going on, so I think that makes sense. And I think that's all we need for right now. Okay, so with that in mind, I think now's a good time to check out some reference. And so I've gone online and I found a few things of reference that I like. So this guy in particular is pretty sweet. I also found that and that, but I really like this one. So another thing too to keep in mind here is that this object is midground to background in size. It's not very big. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to spend a lot of time trying to get this exact reference right here. It might be fun to do that, but it's kind of a waste of time if it's way back there in the frame anyway. So the approach that I'd recommend doing for this particular object is just to use this reference as a guideline, and we'll try to get as close as possible based on the noises that we see in here. What I found is that this Naki is really close to some of the shapes that we see. See how it smooths out right here and then it kind of gets a bit rough? That's perfect for areas like around here. So let's see if we can take this Naki noise and use that as a base. So back here in Houdini, we'll create a RS max on noise, set that up to the surface. First thing to do is to change the scale. So let's say 0.1, and we're going to change the type here to Naki. I think it's Naki, otherwise it'd be Naki, and you know, I don't think that's right. So we'll do Naki. And we'll also add some octaves because I like what the smaller detail is doing. Okay, So we have that going on. Let's also clip the whites so that we can really be sure that the white portions are smooth. We're eventually going to go into the bump channel with this. So let's actually just try that right now and see what that does by default. RS bump map, here's our texture, bump, there's the crystal, and the bump's going to be way too high at first here. So let's say 0.01, and maybe even lower than that, 0.001. There we go. Yeah, so right away, look at that. We are able to add tons of detail just by throwing in a noise. We didn't really do anything with that noise, but man, look at that detail and look how quickly we got that detail. See, that's one of the beauties about noises too, is that you have all this detail. Again, we didn't have to UV anything. We didn't have to worry about anything that complicated. And for a mid to background prop, this honestly could be enough. So there are plenty of props that you'll run across when you're shading things in an environment scene like this, where it only needs a noise, and it's amazing because it's really, really quick to do. Now, we'll try to go past this though, just because, you know, this is a tutorial about noises, and, you know, I think we can do even better. So we kind of have this essence going on in general. It's happening a little bit too much everywhere though. So what we can try doing is we could try playing around with this high clip some more. That'll take away the bump in certain areas, and it'll leave these really smooth zones, and then it gets really jagged. And it kind of randomly does that all throughout the crystal. So we leave a lot of these areas untouched, and then we're just cutting in occasionally with this kind of stuff. Great. Now, let's see if we can add some of these horizontal scratches that we see right here. We'll do that in the next video.